All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 5 o'clock. Welcome to the August 19th meeting of the Temple City Council. Please rise as Mayor Pro Tem Judy Morales leads us in the invocation, followed by our pledge, which will be led by Chief of Staff Gloria Elder.
Join me, please. Father, God of justice and mercy, thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of our city. Help us to act with character and conviction, and help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and restraint. Give us the spirit of service. Remind us that we are stewards of your authority. Guide us to be the leaders your people need. Bless all those who are here today. Bless our national and local leaders, our mayor, our council, city staff, and all those who work so hard every day. Help us to be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving one another. Fill us with your overflowing love for all of us. Teach us to do acts of kindness to those who are in need. Father, be with the doctors and nurses, researchers, and all the medical professionals, our firemen, our police, our volunteers, and all the medical workers and first responders who are working so hard to heal and help those affected with the coronavirus. Be with those who have died from the virus, and may they be rest with you in your eternal peace. Be with the families of those who are sick and or have died as they worry and grieve. Defend them from illness and despair, and may they know that your love and peace will be with them. Father, today we ask you to watch over the refugees and victims of war and those separated from their loved ones. Protect them, keep them safe. Teach and change the hearts of those men as we denounce Satan. And lastly, Father, thank you for being the Prince of Peace. We ask for your supernatural peace to reign in our hearts and in our country and in our world. Thank you for the simple but life-changing message of your love for each of us. We ask this through your most precious Son, our Savior, Jesus. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you both. We'll now move on to public comments. Citizens who desire to address the council on any matter may do so as long as you signed up prior to this meeting. Please know that you have a limit of 3 minutes and no discussion or final action will be taken, but no one has given me a list. There it is. Hope it's not blank. Okay, first on the list is Bobby Thompson.
I live at 904 Henderson Street. I'm up to give compliments tonight. To the Mayor, Judy Morales, the City Council, words of praise and thanks for a job well done. The Avenue H overpass in East Temple looks very neat and clean. The 14th Street area by Jeff Hamilton Park looks fresh and clean. Plus, I was there today. Enjoyed it. Almost went to sleep. It lets me know that East Temple has not been forgotten about. Keep up the good work. Your spotlight sure shines. So on behalf of the News 8, that's who I'm representing tonight, on the MOVE team, the Thompson family, the Stewart family, the Moore family, the Butler family, the People family, and the Williams family, we present you all this case of coke. Temple is a great place to live.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson.
Where did I set this out with? Right here, chair somewhere? Well, get them in. You got lots of men. All right, then.
Thank you so much.
I hit the road.
Thank you, Bobby.
Next on the list is Daniel Maddox.
Daniel Maddox, 919 South 15th Street. For the last year and a half, I've been volunteering at the Lover Heights Food Pantry located at the airport in the kind of the feeder of Piper South. During that time, I've assisted probably 10 to 15 drivers who've had blowouts on a particular small section of curb on that feeder. As they approach the intersection, I have pictures that show these things, but there's a drainage culvert that kind of juts out into the road, but since it's the same color as everything else, it looks the same. And I'm happy to help people in need, but I'm just tired of seeing people crying and children scared. And every driver I've talked to has no idea what happened. I explain to them, well, there's a particular section of curb sticking out into the road. When you walk up to it and actually look at it well, then you can see that it's just black and busted all to pieces, right? So about a year ago, I started trying to communicate with TxDOT. And so, can we do anything about this? All we need is a paint stripe there. And so that people can see, no, I need to wait a second before I get over to turn right on the airport. Eventually in March, I got an email. I have that stuff here on it. And they asked for clarifying information. I provided that, and then no response. Over the months, I'd say, hey, just help somebody else with a blowout. Hey, I just helped someone with a double blowout. And with probably maybe 3 hours I spend there per week, 10 to 15 that I've seen, that the actual number of accidents at that one little spot here, it's probably more. So I just hate for, if someone hasn't already been seriously injured there, you can't have that many blowouts and not have that happen. So I hate to have that, seen that happen. So I contacted the police department and they said, yes, we know what you're talking about. They went out there and looked at it. They said, we'll apply pressure too, maybe if we can get some kind of result. A couple of weeks ago, I sent pictures in and said, see, here's what's happening with TxDOT. And they did call me. And Jake said that he would pass the information along and try to move it. He had no idea when that would happen. So if there's some pressure that could be exerted from the city to accelerate that process and raise some attention, I think it would do something to improve the safety of citizens of and visitors to Temple.
Thank you, Mr. Maddox. Moving on to item 3, which is special recognition. We'll have a presentation from the Citizens Police Academy of Temple Alumni Association.
Hello, my name is Carmel Ray. I'm Vice President of the Citizens Police Academy of Temple. And we would like to give the Blue Santa program a check from the Citizens Police Academy alumni in the amount of $12,352.20. We think that the Blue Santa and the police do an incredible job for this community. And everything that they do, we certainly appreciate it. And we will do anything we can to help you if you ever need us. So Temple Police, Blue Santa.
For those that don't know, would you just real quickly describe what Blue Santa is?
Yes, Blue Santa program is well, would you like to, you're the boss, so here you go. This is the Blue Santa boss right here.
The elf.
It's a program where we help children birth to 14 with Christmas. They each get 4 gifts, a book. We wrap everything. And we live off of donations, either monetary or toys. We've been doing this since 2012. And this last year was our biggest year. It was over 600 kids we helped and 40 families. It's an awesome event. We have a good time. It's a lot of work, but we really enjoy it. And when we see the kids come in, pick up their toys, and visit with the officers and see Santa. It's a magical night for us.
Very good. Thank you. $12,000 definitely deserves a round of applause, right? What? Wasn't invited. I don't think so.
Might accidentally be in
Mr. Mayor,
Makes me feel.
Mr. Mayor, I just
Yes,
wanted
sir.
to take Sean Reynolds, Chief of Temple Police Department. I just want to take a moment to highlight the work that Alicia Troniker does on the Blue Santa program. It is getting ready to kick off in October, and it'll be a sprint from October to December. She is the lead on this, has been for a number of years. We've got a lot of people who want to support her, but her efforts are what make Blue Santa program successful. So I wanted to take just a brief moment, highlight her and the work that she does. Her heart's in it. She loves doing it. It's a lot of work too. So thank you, Alicia. for all.
Chief, how many did Alicia wrap last year?
I think it was 3,245 presents that we wrapped every weekend in October,
No, it's November.
November.
Something first part of
It's awesome. It's a lot of fun.
So what does, there's a 2,400, 600 families, I
It
think.
was over 600 children.
Okay, what does it take for a child to qualify?
They have to live in Temple. And all we request is proof of residence and age verification.
Pretty simple. Yeah. Good. Thank you for that. That means a lot to the
Thank
community.
you to CPAT as well. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
I'm going to the bank.
Okay, next item is item number 4, which is a public hearing to conduct a hearing on the proposed community development program as required by the Texas Community Development Act, Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 373. Ms. Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you recall, we presented this to you, Ms. Landeris and I, at the August 13th special called City Council meeting. So this is just a little bit shorter version for you all today as we conduct a public hearing. We are not requesting any, sorry, I forget. We aren't requesting any action today. We are just requesting to conduct a public. So just a brief overview of the Texas Community Development Act that is allowed by the local government code for communities to provide decent housing to the living environments. Our program document does focus on 3 key areas: program goals, focus areas, and program activities. The program goals, as you can see on the screen, provide several different benefits to the Temple community, such as blight elimination, residential and commercial redevelopment and development, infrastructure improvements, and several other activities. The focus areas, we came up with those based on the neighborhood planning program that we have, the Love Where You Live program. We identified 18 neighborhood planning districts, as you all recall, and we have a pretty aggressive schedule where we complete 4 neighborhood plans per year. We started with Ferguson Park and we've completed 6 to date, and currently are working on 3 right now. And so as you can see on the map, we have we show all of those planning districts there, and then an overlay, the hatched area is a low and moderate income area. And so all of the area within the LMI is included. And in addition to that, we're proposing to include all of Jackson Park, the area in Temple Heights that's between Avenue M and Avenue R, as well as the area south of Avenue M and east of 31st, as well as south of Avenue R in the T-1 district. There are several different program activities that are included in this program, such as the acquisition and disposition of real property, rehabilitation of privately owned property, assistance to private entities, provision of public services, grants to nonprofits, code enforcement, clearance, demolition, and rehabilitation of buildings, construction of public works, and relocation payments. So the four different areas within the program, the first one is residential development and redevelopment. The major goal here is to encourage a mixture of residential development so we can create safe, vibrant, and healthy neighborhoods. Some actions that we will do to further this activity would be updating our Unified Development Code to allow for infill and other growth opportunities, and creating zoning standards that would also allow for greater density. Working with nonprofit organizations for low and moderate income families. Also, the creation of affordable and market rate housing. Potentially pursuing a memorandum of understanding with Bell County and other taxing entities related to the tax sale of properties. Residential grant program, which I'll go through today as well. Working with developers to pursue housing developments that qualify for low income housing tax credits, and the design and construction of infrastructure improvements. For the economic development portion, we're promoting economic development so we can stimulate local business and commercial activity. Some actions for that would be adopting a commercial grant program, pursuing economic development agreements with interested developers that would like to complete commercial development, and pursuing tax payment agreements with interested property owners. For the land acquisition and disposition portion, this would help us improve our infrastructure, promote residential development and redevelopment, and ensure that the property uses are in compliance with the program goals. Some actions to further this would be pursuing the memorandum of understanding, as I stated previous, and forming a local government corporation. For the last one, the educational programming and resource development, this would be an opportunity for us to educate citizens, property owners, and developers of the community development program and its benefits. With this, we would like to have a webpage that would be dedicated to the community development program that would explain the program goals, areas, and activities, and so also have a lot of information on our social media pages. I'm also proposing a boot camp series for program activities, a developer boot camp, and a homeowner boot camp as well. So as I stated earlier, we have completed 6 neighborhood plans. The idea is that as we complete these plans, we would add this to the community development program. So there are different components within each of these plans. And so what we're proposing is different grant programs that align with each of the neighborhood planning districts. Very similar to our strategic investment zone grant, where there would be a match and then a max grant available to those. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, ma'am. Council, we discussed this Friday at length. Anybody have any comments or questions?
No, except that I think it's really a giant step forward in our goals to try to revitalize our neighborhoods. And I think it's a great step to go forward with this.
This item is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item may do so. We ask that you step to the podium and state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the virtual platform. Nothing? Okay. Okay, there being none, then I will close this public hearing and no action is required. So moving on to item 5, which is the consent agenda. All items listed under this section, which is called the consent agenda, are considered to be routine by the city council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by the council, any item may be removed for individual discussion if any council member wishes to, and will be considered separately. No one mentioned anything during workshop, so if there is no discussion requested, then I will entertain a motion on items 5A through 5U.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion by Councilmember Walker. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. If you would, please cast your vote. Very good. Item 5 passes 5 votes to 0. Moving on to item 6, which is the regular agenda. This is a first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a conditional use permit and site plan for an equipment rental facility for Sunbelt Rental located on 3.98 plus or minus acres of land located on the east side of North General Bruce Drive, approximately 830 feet north of West Bel Air North. Address is 3509 North 3rd Street. Mr. Chandler.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's my pleasure to present this conditional use permit application along the I-35 corridor overlay. And the applicant is here, Stan Briggs from Sunbelt, if you have questions later. And so just to give you a little bit of background, this is a conditional use permit request due to its location along the I-35 corridor overlay. As you may recall, this is the site where Kubota used to be, and Kubota moved through a plan development process, leaving this site. So one, heavy machinery sales or rental use for another. However, with the heavier machinery in terms of the taller booms and cherry pickers, we interpreted that this would require a new conditional use permit, and therefore it's in front of you. It's within the industrial subdistrict in the I-35 corridor overlay, and no new buildings are proposed, but they are proposing some landscaping improvements, some improvements to the existing building, and paving of the site to meet the requirements. And so the Development Review Committee reviewed this on July 6th, and no issues were identified. So you can see on the right where that's located. It's just inside Loop 363, but north of Mayborn. Wow, that was working. Thank you. No, thank you. And so it's a 43,265 square foot site, essentially an acre. And so you see the site plan, the top right, and then elevations lower right. And so that would include some new painting, some awnings on the building, landscaping in front of the building to meet the I-35 corridor overlay. But from a landscaping perspective, they would provide a 25-foot front landscape buffer for the overlay standards, as well as side landscape buffers with trees and shrubs, according to Encore allowances, because we do have overhead utilities in the front. And then also foundation planting and new landscape islands within the parking area to meet the overlay requirements. The building permit, of course, would be required for all the site improvements. And so just looking at the criteria for a CUP, we're not going to go through all of this, but bottom line is we evaluate traffic circulation and essentially ensuring that the use proposed would not create a nuisance for the surrounding areas and for I-35. And so we do not see any negative impact from that perspective. And then just, of course, looking at the zoning again, you can see the cross-hatched area is the industrial subdistrict. And in terms of comprehensive plan compliance, the comp plan shows this as future regional commercial. And so this is compliant, kind of a destination retail for the corridor. So you can see what it looks like currently, and you see the overhead utility lines. You see the church just to the south. And you can see what the surrounding properties look like as well. And so 5 notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet, and 2 were returned in agreement that it includes from the applicant, but 0 in disagreement. So staff recommends approval with the following 6 conditions. and the typical one of substantial compliance with the site plan and elevations, but including the paving, the landscaping, and the awnings shown on the elevation. Also compliance with the I-35 corridor overlay landscaping and architectural requirements that include the front and side landscape buffers, the 2 landscape parking islands, and an awning for each window. CUP shall apply to Sunbelt rentals only. And so that would be for this use. If another heavy machinery sales or rental company came forward in the future on this site, then per this condition, they would have to get another conditional use permit. Also, the tall equipment such as the cranes and booms and cherry pickers would need to be located behind the building. And the director of planning, who happens to be me, may approve minor modifications to the site plan, and significant changes would have to come back to planning, zoning, and city council. And so the applicant has agreed to all of these, and P&Z recommended approval of those conditions as well at the July 19th meeting. Happy to answer any questions. And once again, Mr. Briggs is here if you have additional questions.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Council, any questions for Mr. Chandler?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. It's really nice to see the landscaping and architectural details for the I-35 overlay coming into play. Thanks for that.
You bet.
Assuming it passes its grade.
All right, this item is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the platform. Okay, there being none, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion on item number 6.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve item number 6 as presented by Mr. Chandler.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Long. We have a second by Councilmember Williams. Council, if you would, please cast your vote.
I'll vote aye.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't know what that's all about. All right.
Very good. That item passes 5 votes to 0. Moving on to the next item, which is item number 7, is to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a conditional use permit and site plan for recreational vehicle park expansion on Lot 9, Block 1, Bel Air Commercial Subdivision, in addition to the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas, addressed as 12829 Northeast HK Dodge and Loop. Mr. Chandler.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So we have our second conditional use permit on the agenda. This one is for an expansion of an existing RV park. While it's not in the I-35 corridor overlay, it backs up to retail that is in the overlay and is actually would have a connection to this expanded section of the RV park for the Bel Air retail. And so you can see the location, the crosshatched area being the expanded part of the existing Bel Air RV park. And so this would be phase 2, and conditional use permit is required within the base light industrial zoning district at that location. And so there would be 67 new individual RV spaces as part of this expansion. ERC reviewed this as well. No issues were identified. And as far as phase 1 goes, you may recall that this came to you all about 2 years ago for the original conditional use permit. And so the good news is it's been successful, and they want to expand and basically mirror what's already there, but including some additional amenities. And you can see on the screen what some of those are, including a swimming pool, trails, a community center, but also a connection by foot to the retail behind. So you'd have that connectivity between those with the overnight accommodations in the RV park and the retail that's there, but also future retail expansion. just to the west. And so here you can see the site plan, the existing on the right, and then to the left, proposed. And the community center is circled, and that includes restrooms and showers as well. And then elevations of that building are shown to the left. And then a floor plan. And once again, conditional use permit, and we reviewed this and determined there were no negative impacts for the criteria. And so the zoning map, you can see that it's currently zoned light industrial, backs up to commercially zoned property that's also in the overlay. And so on the left, you can see what the site looks like currently. And on the right, the view from the subject property to the current RV park. And just some photos of what that looks like. It's usually full. And so 3 notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet, 2 in agreement, and of course that is the applicant, but 0 in disagreement. And staff recommends approval with 4 conditions. Once again, substantial compliance, but also compliance with Chapter 31, which is, the previous phase met the Chapter 31 code that council approved back in April, I believe, of 2018. So it's pretty substantial code requirements. They met it the first phase. At first glance, it looks like they meet it with the second. They're very familiar with those requirements, which includes landscaping with a qualifying tree on each RV site and irrigation. And then just giving me authorization to make approve minor changes to the site plan if needed. And at the July 19th meeting, P&Z recommended unanimous approval, 9-0 for staff's recommendation. And happy to answer any additional questions. And the applicants are here in case you have questions for them as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Council, any questions? No? All right, item 7 is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Or raise your hand on the platform.
Platform? No. My name is Alan Lytle. I live at 504B Paseo del Plata here in Temple. Mr. Chandler's presentation for both 6 and 7. For both 6, I've waited for this, both 6 and 7. My concern and my hope is that before very long, we will be seeing the plans for the expansion of the north loop to 4 lanes to give us access loops, access roads for the new long, hard equipment that's going to be hogging up that particular intersection that I use all the time to go to Waco, as well as for the RVs. So I'm here to ask council, planning and zoning, consider widening and expanding the North Loop 363. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Just as a comment, neither one of those roads are controlled by the city. That's all state stuff. So, anybody else? Anybody on the virtual platform? Okay. All right. There being no further comments, I will close the public hearing on item number 7. And council, if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion on item number 7.
Motion to approve item 7.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Walker and a second by Councilmember Long. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Item 7 passes 5 votes to 0. Moving on to item number 8 is the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance approving a zoning change from planned development general retail to planned development single family attached dwelling 2 with a site development plan on 4.016 plus or minus acres addressed as 715 South P Ridge Road. Mr. Chandler.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So this case is for proposed townhomes along South P Ridge. And so you can see the map almost directly across from Purtle Elementary at the intersection of P Ridge and Tarver. And so this phase, so just know that they're proposing a second phase if this one is approved. This one consists of 4.016 acres. And so you can see the proposed site plan on the right. It's turned 90 degrees. So you see Tarver is actually on the left rather than the bottom. And this phase proposes 39 townhomes. And then the future phase proposes an additional 50, which would consist of 5.3 acres immediately to the north, which is already scheduled for planning and zoning on September 7th and city council on October 7th. And so it's difficult to see on the site plan, but just take my word for it that it shows sidewalks and street trees all throughout the development. And the future plat would address drainage. And so this is a better example of the site plan. At least it's north-south oriented. So you can see what that phase would look like. And then on the right, you can see what those townhomes would look like. And in terms of the thoroughfare plan, both South P Ridge and Tarver are community collectors, and utilities are certainly available. And so that is important because, as you probably recall, within the new comprehensive plan for the future development plan, gives locational criteria to provide a little more flexibility as to where retail should be located, where single family should be located, and townhouses. And so with the residential and neighborhood services designation, which is shown in yellow, it also gives specific criteria as to where townhouses are appropriate. And it talks about at intersections of collectors, in this case, community collectors or arterials. So both streets are community collectors. And so 6 notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet and 0 were returned. And so you can see, just to familiarize yourselves with what this looks like. Of course, Purtle across the street. It's also adjacent to the Von Rosenberg Park and also the pool for the Hills of Westwood. But it's also separated by future city proposed linear park or trail, which they're also proposing connections to that, so that once that trail is constructed, there would be direct access for the residents to it. So there are 9 proposed conditions. The substantial compliance with the plans, also compliance with a single family attached to standards in the EDC, that there are a maximum of 4 attached townhomes together, with the exception of 1 spot on the site plan, which there are 6 at that location. Just that's how the configuration worked. 6-foot sidewalk on South P Ridge with internal sidewalks and trail connections to the future greenway. Qualifying street trees after every 50 feet along South P Ridge, Tarver, and internal streets that would be maintained by the HOA. 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. Approval of the site development plan for phase 2 prior to platting. Of course, that comes to you all in October. And that the HOA maintain the private park in the middle of the development that I failed to point out in the site plan, but also the common areas, and that minor adjustments could be approved by the planning director to the site. And so planning and zoning recommended at their July 19th meeting, 8 to 0. There was 1 abstention. Recommendation per staff, staff's recommendation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Sir, council, any questions for Mr. Chandler? Item 8 is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium podium, state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the virtual platform. All right, there being none, and if there's no further discussion, council, please cast your vote on, I'm sorry, getting ahead of myself. I will entertain a motion on item number 8.
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of item number 8 with the conditions as outlined in the presentation.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Williams. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. Now, council, if you would, please cast your vote. Item number 8 passes 5 votes to 0. Moving on to item number 9 is to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a city-initiated rezoning from agricultural to light industrial zoning district on 313.93 plus or minus acres located on the southwest corner of Industrial Boulevard and Loop 363.
All right, thank you, Mayor. And you will note that while tonight is not the public hearing, that is scheduled for September 2nd. So there will be an opportunity for public comment for this particular rezoning case. And so you can see on the map here, this is north of Nugent and just inside the loop. And the purpose of this rezoning is for TDC expansion of the business park and make this site shovel ready, which would also comply with our new comprehensive plan as well. And so the rezoning is proposed for agriculture to light industrial, and 86 of the acres are already zoned light industrial. So the expansion of that into a single site, which would have to be addressed through a future plat. And so you can see the zoning map where the light industrial is currently located to the east, and that this is all agricultural zoning that's consistent with growth trends in the surrounding area and expansion of the business park. And so the comprehensive plan, the future development plan, shows this as future business park intended to support a variety of different campus type of light manufacturing, et cetera. And so that's what the purpose of the city initiated rezoning. And so in terms of the thoroughfare plan, there are a number of collectors running through the site. And you'll see at the next agenda item, a bunch of thoroughfare plan amendments, but including removing those that bisect this site from the thoroughfare plan that include the Windland proposed extension, parts of Curly Road, and either way, we'll talk more about that, but just to make this a cohesive shovel-ready site. And there's a trail shown in the master plan as well. And so with future development on the site, we would address potential trail locations, with that developer. And so here you can just see the undeveloped nature of the property currently. So 15 notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet. 2 were returned in agreement, and those were from property owners to the south and east. So staff recommends approval. And at the August 16th meeting, P&Z recommended unanimous approval 8-0. Once again, I will stand by in case you have any questions.
Thank you, sir. Council, any questions for Mr. Chandler? Okay, then there being none, I'll entertain a motion on item number 9.
I'll make a motion that it's approved as presented.
Second.
Have motion by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. We have a second by Councilmember Walker. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Item 9 passes 5 votes to 0. Item 10 is the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an amendment to ordinance 2020-5061, City of Temple Comprehensive Plan, Chapter 4, to amend the future thoroughfare plan. Mr. Chandler.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Last but not least, number 5, but who is counting? So P and Z reviewed the thoroughfare plan amendments on the 16th. And as you all know, the comprehensive plan includes a thoroughfare plan, and that was approved back on October 15th of last year. And so the thoroughfare plan is a extremely important part of that document, guides future road alignments and classifications to be able to know how wide a street ought to be, whether it includes sidewalks, whether it includes street trees, landscaping, medians, et cetera. And of course, it's a conceptual document, and so we have to make adjustments out in the field and come back to you for significant changes. I can approve very minor changes that are, essentially correcting mapping issues or locking to a property line so it doesn't go through it doesn't show going through someone's living room, for example. So these are major changes. And so there are really three sets of them, 11 total. And so the three of them are related to the zoning case we just talked about. And that is eliminating the roads that bisect that industrial property, as well as removing a section of Curly Road, so that we can have essentially a cohesive site. Another set is related to the Midtown Neighborhood Plan. And then lastly, the Cottonwood study and discussion. We have some changes proposed to reflect what council, with the direction that you all gave several months ago. And so starting with the Curly Road and Windland and Enterprise, you can see the dashed lines that would be removed from the thoroughfare plan to create that cohesive 300+ acre site. Midtown Neighborhood Plan. And so this is directly from the plan, but we zoom in on what would change. You can see it on this map, and that's essentially taking local streets identified during the planning process that are serving more beyond the neighborhood boundaries. They're not really functioning as local streets, and helping to make that transition to neighborhood collectors. And so you look at Avenue E, G, a section of 5th and a section of 19th Street for the plan. And then lastly, this is the set of Cottonwood amendments that would change Oakdale from Cottonwood to the Loop, from a local to a neighborhood collector, and then also on Cottonwood Lane west of Meadow Oak, changing that from a neighborhood collector to local. But essentially, this is just reflecting the guidance that you all gave based on the input that was received from neighborhood residents. And so staff recommends approval and amending the ordinance governing the comp plan. And P&Z recommended unanimously 8-0 at their last meeting to approve per staff's recommendation. Be happy to entertain any questions.
Council? Okay. All right, there being none, I'll entertain them. Pam. Yep. This is.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yes, ma'am. All right. So I don't know if you can see that map clearly, but I'll describe it to you. So right now, Cottonwood all the way to Hickory is shown as a neighborhood collector, but of course you've got the barrier there, and so that with no intention to remove that barrier at this time, there's also no need to have that section of connecting to Hickory as any more than a local street. And so that's the primary change. And then the others are trying to reflect where traffic really does go. to make those neighborhood collectors or to make what is already a neighborhood collector, like that section of Cottonwood, just a local street, which is intended just for basically the neighbors in the area, not cut through traffic.
Ma'am, up here. Hello, how are you? This item is subject to a public hearing, and the appropriate way to do that would be to step to the microphone and state your name and address for the record, or, okay.
Brett, I can help a little bit. Vanny, hi. Vanny really wants to know mainly, are the rocks staying? Are you recommending the rocks staying or the rocks going?
Rocks are staying for.
Because of neighborhood streets versus collector streets.
Well, you know, my name is Vanny Bolsons. I live in that area and I would like to use that street. So that's my main thing. And I have several of my neighbors with me. We're old ladies and we like to take the shortcuts and get here and there and so forth. So thank you for listening. I want to say, I guess, I went and reviewed the 2004 minutes and the May 2005 when all of this came about. And it seemed like it took place during the time that King's Daughters was doing that little trail and then the loop was being put in and all of that. That's all been done for years. And not many, but several of the people in here quoted that they saw no reason for that street to be closed off. I think it's outused its time, it's outdated. And furthermore, the people that can't go down Cottonwood, they go down another street off of, they turn on Astor, they go down, what's that big street? Anyway, they turn on Astor, they get on Forest Trail. And there is a tremendous traffic on Forest Trail, constant, trying to get over to Hickory because they know they can't get over there with this other one. And there's not very many people on Cottonwood, not near as many as on Forest Trail that this traffic is affecting. So I think another look at it, I think it's outdated. Needs to be looked at. And I don't think it's very attractive. And I think if I were a new person coming into this community and I ran up on that rock with the weeds, I would think, what's Temple doing? It just doesn't look good. It's perfect dangerous for somebody that's not driving too well, some older person or something. I almost had a friend that ran into it, a little old lady. I hope that doesn't happen because that'd be a serious problem for the city. And I guess the fire people and the ambulance people know that it's there and they can get around it. But what if they have new people driving those cars and they don't know it's there? I don't want that ambulance slowed down if it's coming for me. So that's all I need to say. I do want to thank Susan for staying in touch with me and letting me air a lot of this out. Thank you, Susan.
Fanny, anytime.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else?
My name is Donald McCray.
Ready? Let's go.
That was us, I think.
And I have lived there since 1978 when I built the house. I was there when the rock was put down. Thank goodness that the city did that. Because prior to that, we had as many as 4,000 cars a day, as proven by the company that the city hired to measure the traffic to see what the problem was. And when they found out what it was, the city came up with the idea of blocking the city the road where it is. Now, whether you put a rock there or a curb there or whatever, makes no difference to me. But we need to keep that blocked because I don't want to have to wait 15, 20 minutes to be able to get out of my driveway a lot of times. And beside that, the company that the city hired found out that some of the cars traveling on that road at that time was as much as 75 miles an hour. It's not just a city street. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
For the record, Alan Lytle, I vote for Paseo del Plata. Mr. Chandler, I need a clarification. The item 10 has nothing to do with what we're going to do to any street. It's simply the names in the plan. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Has nothing to do with actual anything plans for changing any of the streets.
At this time, that is absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Anybody on the virtual platform? Okay. At this time, I will close the public hearing. And council, if there is no further discussion, then I'll entertain a motion on item number 10.
Make a motion to approve item 10.
Mayor, I will second that motion, but I would like to add to the women who are here who have stayed in touch with me so often and are so disappointed with this motion. I understand your feelings and we will look to trying to do some beautification if indeed this passes. But public safety has got to be the first concern of the city. So I second Ms. Walker's motion on this.
I have a motion by Councilmember Walker and a second by Councilmember Long. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Item number 10 passes 5 votes to 0. Item number 11 is the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing the abandonment of number 1, a 4.11 acre portion of Curly Road public right-of-way, and number 2, a 35-foot wide 0.915 acre public right-of-way conveyed to the city of Temple in the final plat of the Temple Industrial Substation, in addition to the city of Temple as shown in the plat of record in plat year 2014, plat number 141, plat records of Bell County, Texas, and document number 2014-43187 of the official public records of Bell County, Texas, and reserving and dedicating public utility easements for the existing public utility infrastructure. Ms. Thomas.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I hope my presentation is actually shorter than the reading of the item description. This is actually a city-initiated abandonment of 2 portions of right-of-way. One is a 4.110 acre portion of Curly Road public right-of-way, and the other is an unnamed 35-foot wide 0.915 acre right-of-way that was conveyed to the city in the final plat of the Temple Industrial Substation in 2014. The abandonment request circulated to outside utility providers and the City of Temple Public Works Department. Some utility providers do have facilities within this right-of-way that we're proposing abandoning. And public utility easements will need to be reserved if and when the adjacent properties are ultimately conveyed. This map gives you a general idea. It's not exact of the proposed abandonment of Curly Road and the unnamed called out portion in the 2014 plat. This is the survey of the 4.110 acres of Curly Road right-of-way that begins at Industrial Boulevard and extends along those about 4 tracts of property. The unnamed city right of way is this short portion shown here on this survey. The city does not have any plans to further develop these rights of way. They are located in the industrial park, and abandonment of the facilities or of the rights of way will help facilitate future development in this area by allowing one contiguous tract that can be conveyed for economic development purposes. Abandonment will also allow the adjacent properties to be more easily conveyed if and as development is warranted. Staff recommends approval of the abandonment of these rights of way, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Council, any questions for Ms. Thomas? Okay, this item is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item may do so. We ask that you please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the virtual platform. Anyone in the audience? Okay, there's no one on the platform either. I will close this public hearing and entertain a motion on item number 11.
I move for adoption of item number 11 as presented.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilmember Williams. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Judy Morales. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Item number 11 passes 5 votes to 0. Thank you all for attending tonight, and this meeting is adjourned.